What's happening, YouTube? And welcome back to another episode of A Heated Review. And spoiler alert is in order. I'm Captain Westicle. This is Shan Chan. And today we're going to be talking about Terminator Genisys. Now, before we get into this movie, I should probably mention that I am a huge Terminator fan. I will eat up anything with the name Terminator plastered on it. I liked the third movie, which we probably won't do a review on because everybody hated it. I liked the fourth movie, which we probably won't do a review on because everybody hated it. Well, and I liked this movie as well, and everybody hated it.
A great thing for the heated review, though?
Because you haven't seen either of them, so how are we going to talk about them?
I saw 3.
Oh yeah, you saw 3.
We could do 3.
Yeah, maybe.
We can have a good debate.
Yeah, we might do that in a later review, we'll see.
Maybe, we'll see.
But anyway, both of us really, really liked Genisys. And so that's the one that we're going to talk about today.
Very, very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, I thought this was the best film since Terminator 2.
Agreed.
And this film has taken a lot of heat. It didn't do very well in the U.S. It did do well outside the U.S. But, I mean, obviously the U.S. is like the main market for this sort of thing. So, anyway, it's all going to be for naught since James Cameron has the rights back and apparently is planning on making 3 more films, which I'm very, very excited about. But, yeah, we'll just talk about Genisys for this review here. The main complaints on this film is that the acting is pretty crappy. It copies the first movie shot for shot a lot of the time. The storyline doesn't make sense. And Arnold's too old. So,
we'll be going across those and more. Yeah.
We're basically going to talk about why we liked the movie so much with a couple of the things that did bug us a bit. I mean, there are a few, but does it detract enough from the movie for us to give it a thumbs down? No. I thought this movie was amazing.
Everything that happened in the movie that bothered me didn't bother me enough to even give one little notch in this movie on my like scale. I didn't really care because everything else was that greatly done that I didn't care about the stuff that was wrong. So let's start with bad acting. We actually completely disagree with this. We thought the acting was beautifully done. The main cast, especially, was great.
Yeah, let's start with Emilia Clarke, because she is probably the most controversial actress as far as this movie
I disagree with that, but all right.
You think there's somebody else that gets more heat?
Jai Courtney.
Okay, let's talk about him first then.
Jai Courtney, it just seems like everybody says he's an all-around bad actor.
He doesn't have the resume that Emilia Clarke does, for sure. He was outstanding in Spartacus. For people that have not seen that show, I would call that a must-watch.
Amazing.
But outside of that, not a lot of people even know who he is, as far as I know.
But a lot of people, even before Genisys came out, when Genisys was just, mouth of word kind of thing, and they were saying Jai Courtney was going to be Kyle Reese, everybody's like, oh my God, it's going to be horrible, Jai Courtney, ugh, and it's like, what has he done that has deserved so much hate? Of course, I'd only seen him in Spartacus. But I loved him in Spartacus, so...
Yeah, and he was a superb actor in that show.
Very.
So I'm not sure where all that heat is coming from.
As far as this movie, I thought he did a pretty good job. It wasn't phenomenal, outstanding, oh my gosh, blown away, but I thought he did good.
He's not Michael Biehn, and let's be fair, that was a tough act to follow. Michael Biehn was outstanding in the original Terminator. Is Jai Courtney horrible in this movie? Absolutely not. Is it an Oscar-worthy performance?
No.
Absolutely not. But he does turn in a good, solid performance that certainly does not hurt the quality of this film at all.
Probably 7 or 8 on a scale of 1 to 10.
I would probably give him the same.
And as he said, Emilia Clarke, big stuff said about her because she's, the mother of dragons on Game of Thrones, which is another phenomenal show to watch.
Yeah, and I honestly think that she was cast in this film to try and draw some of the Game of Thrones fans into watching it.
I agree. But her acting was completely different, I think, in this movie than it was.
And there were also the people out there that would be like, Emilia Clarke is Sarah Connor, she's never going to be able to pull that off, blah, blah, blah. Well, to be fair, for people that have seen the Terminator TV series, Lena Headey, Cersei Lannister, made an amazing Sarah Connor. Maybe even better than Linda Hamilton.
Yeah.
Bring on the hate mail.
I don't agree with that, so only send hate mail to him.
Yeah, Linda Hamilton was amazing. Phenomenal as Sarah
She was
Connor,
all right.
particularly in Terminator 2. However, I do feel that Lena Headey also does an outstanding job. Is Emilia Clarke in the same ballpark as they are? No, not in this film.
Lena Headey was all right, but I like the original.
You've
far.
only seen like the first 2 episodes of the
Yeah,
series.
but it's because
so
it's boring.
You can't
It's just kind of boring. I'm sorry. It's not bad, but it's not great either. This movie was fantastic, and Emilia Clarke, I thought, put a solid performance in.
Mm-hmm.
Again, not Oscar worthy by any means, not over the top phenomenal, but
But
probably,
not worthy of all the hate that she's getting.
I
for
still
it.
think she's about the same range, about an 8 on a scale 1 to 10. Mm-hmm. She did good.
Yeah.
I liked it.
I thought so too.
I thought she looked a bit young for the role.
I thought that as well.
That's the only
If
thing
if
I
you
thought.
compare Linda Hamilton in the original Terminator to Emilia Clarke in this Terminator, when they're supposed to be the same age, Emilia Clarke looks a lot younger.
Way
now maybe
younger.
that's just because she looks younger, but if you're gonna buy the fact that Sarah Connor's the same age, I would find somebody that looks a little bit more
Mature.
within the age range of.
But you got to also remember that, I mean, we could probably look it up. I forgot to look it up. Was Emilia Clarke about the same age as Linda Hamilton was when she did it?
I have no idea.
Because
but that would be some good information to have.
You got to remember, kids the same age as we were look a lot younger to us. Every generation does.
That's true. We're getting old.
We are.
Apologize.
So moving
Speaking
on.
of old, should we talk about
Yes,
Arnold for a minute here?
Great segue. I thought Arnold did great. I thought they had a great reason for him being old. Mm-hmm. I thought it really worked out. It makes sense. If he's supposed to have real
skin,
real flesh to be transported in the time machine, you would think it's going to degenerate over the years like a real
just
human.
like humans would. Yeah.
So I thought it made sense.
Within the story they were trying to tell, that made perfect sense. And as far as I'm concerned, Arnold can play the Terminator for as long as he wants, just like Harrison Ford can play Indiana Jones for as long as he wants. Those guys are just made for those roles. And I wouldn't want to see anybody else play a T-800, to be honest with you.
Same with me. It just wouldn't be the same.
He's still awesome.
He is.
My one complaint was the clothing. I didn't particularly like Arnold's outfit.
It wasn't standout-ish.
I want to see the Terminator in biker gear. That's just the way I am. Just the way he looked at the end of Terminator 1 and all of Terminator 2 and all of Terminator 3. That's the kind of look that I want for my Terminator. This one, since he's older, they just kind of gave him like a leather jacket with a hoodie that just didn't look as awesome.
He was supposed to blend in more.
Yeah, and he hardly even had sunglasses on. But, small nitpick.
Let's see here.
Let's talk about Lee Byung-hun,
Oh,
who was like one of the huge standouts in this movie.
would have been a 10 on my scale.
I would give him a 10 as well.
T-1000 will always be,
Yeah.
what's his name?
Robert Patrick.
Robert Patrick. He will always be Robert Patrick. But it doesn't mean that they didn't make him look like different things. Just like the TV show, they made to look different.
Yeah.
The third movie was a different, they weren't both T-1000s, but still the liquid metal thing. So all of them could have looked different, but the way that the T-1000 acted, their demeanor, their moves, their personality, everything, spot on. He actually said that he watched the movie number 2 over and over and over again and really studied how Robert Patrick moved and acted and facial expressions and mimicked them, and I say spot on.
So
Perfect.
good. So good.
It gave me chills.
Yeah.
It
just,
really
just amazing. If I could give one person the gold star for this movie, it would be him.
Yes.
My only disappointment was that he's hardly in this film.
Yeah,
he's
should've had a
got
lot more.
maybe 10 minutes of screen time tops. I would have been quite happy to have him be the main villain in this piece, to be honest with you. I mean,
Yeah,
he was just that good.
They kind of focused more on John Connor after they disposed of the T-1000.
Yes.
And he was not as good of a main villain as the T-1000.
I didn't think so either. But again, that's a nitpick on my part. In fact, that's a nitpick of many, many people regarding this film. They don't want to see John Connor as the bad guy. And in this movie, John Connor is the bad guy. He's infected by the machines or whatever and basically becomes the T-3000.
I understand.
Didn't really like the direction they went there.
I understand why they went there. I mean, they had to do something different, otherwise it would have just been a repeat, and they were trying to not be a repeat.
Yeah.
And it made sense to me. Now, was he as good of a villain? I mean, I'm taking this as not being a huge John Connor fan. My husband's way bigger fan of John Connor than I am. I liked him in number 2, of course, but that was it. So, being that, it was an older John Connor being switched over, I didn't see much of a stretch. I understood the direction of it and everything. The only thing I had a beef with was that they kind of ruined the surprise. In the previews, they totally messed up and showed that John Connor was the bad guy. Plus, the guy that infects John Connor is a Doctor Who. He stands out in that crowd so badly that even if the preview
if
didn't
that was
ruin
supposed
it,
to be a secret, they blew it big time.
Yeah,
I
because
mean, like in Terminator 2, they were very, very careful to make sure with their previews and everything that you had no idea that
Arnold was the good guy and Robert Patrick was the bad guy.
Which made it a huge surprise and I'm sure added to the film's success, and a brilliant story twist by James Cameron, by the way.
They should have done that with this movie, but in casting a Doctor Who for that split-second character sitting in the crowd of a whole bunch of no-names, that was obvious right there. You knew something was up.
Well, that, and it shows
and in
John
the preview,
Connor as the TE-3000 in like all the previews.
All the previews.
So then as soon as you see him at the beginning of the film, you're like, oh, well, crap. And that's like within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. They kind of spoiler alerted themselves on that one.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a disappointment. They could have done another T2 if they could have just done it a little bit differently.
Yeah. And I mean, each Terminator movie has a bit of a twist.
And I thought it was a great twist, personally, with me. I don't agree with my husband and it being a bothersome thing. I thought it was a great twist. I just thought it wasn't pulled off as well as it could have been.
But they handle the twist much, much better in the other films. I mean, T2, obviously the twist, it was huge. T3, the twist is they don't stop Judgment Day. The bombs fall at the end, which I thought was that was a major shocker the first time I saw that movie. And then Terminator 4, you find out at the end that one of the main guys you're rooting for is actually a machine the whole time. And that was another great secret that they had for that film. And then this one, the secret was supposed to be that John Connor is the bad guy, which they totally blew it.
Yeah.
But anyway, moving on.
Well, keeping to John Connor, since we're already on the subject, about why didn't John kill his mom and dad? Why did he want to convert them instead?
Yeah, this is a nitpick that a lot of people have about this film, and there's no good explanation for it. They're in the parking lot. He has a chance to kill them. He doesn't. He says he wants them to work together as a family unit, blah, 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 blah. Well, obviously if he kills them, then they're never going to have a kid, which means he's never going to be born. So that makes sense. But then he tries to kill him later. And that doesn't make any sense. So you can't have it both ways. And that's kind of what they did in this movie, which, that kind of bothered me a little bit.
My argument was that in the beginning, he still had some emotional attachment because it is still his mom and dad, and he wasn't full machine right off the bat, so he still had some lingering emotional attachments to them. So he'd rather them join him so that, he could have them with him, join the dark side, Luke, blah, 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 come on.
Yeah.
But I do agree with the whole thing of, but then again, even with my argument, even if I think that it's totally plausible and that's the way it is, him trying to kill him later, I can't really justify that because it's true. He won't exist, so...
Yeah.
What the hell? Paradox.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of paradoxes in the Terminator universe, but we won't get into those because we could talk about them forever. Let's stay on the Genisys topic.
We can mention it though. Go into another thing. Copies the first movie. Now, the beginning of Terminator Genisys, as I hope you would know because I hope you're not watching this without seeing the movie. First part of Genisys copies the first movie and Kyle and him coming into the world. And
the main
stealing the
complaint is
clothes
that they copy Terminator 1 shot for shot.
for the very beginning of the movie.
And they do.
They did, and I thought it was beautifully done.
Yeah, but
I loved
that's
it.
the whole point. It's supposed to be. It's the events in 1984 when the original Terminator shows up in the original Terminator film are supposed to be taking place in the beginning of the Terminator Genisys film. So why would you not copy it shot for shot? Why would you not do the very best that you could to make it look exactly like the first film was playing out? And that's what they did. I mean, that was like one of my favorite parts in this movie.
One of my favorite parts as well, all the way through to the old Arnold versus the new Arnold. That was
worth the price of admission right there. That scene
a lot of people
is
who
amazing.
hated the movie said it was worth that scene to go see in the theater. It was
The CGI
wonderful.
they did for the young Arnold there was absolutely incredible. Probably the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, Brett Azar, if I'm saying his name right, is the one who did the young Arnold body, and they CGI'd Arnold's face over his face. And
For everyone that complains about the poor
Wonderful.
CGI that they did in Rogue One, when you go back and watch Rogue One on a high def TV, you can see that the CGI
it's a
has some
little
issues.
awkward seeing people that aren't alive being
This
brought back to
one-
life.
This film, which was made before Rogue One, looks better.
It does.
When you see it on a high def TV, you can't tell that it's not Arnold. It's just really, really good.
It looks like Arnold's wearing some makeup to make his skin a little bit more flawless, but it looks real.
Yeah, fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Very well done. So yeah, the copying of the first movie I thought was completely essential and
Yeah, and kudos
great.
to them for doing it that
Yes. Now the storyline not making sense. Now we do have a little bit of an argument when it comes to timelines on this, and the storyline with the
way.
timelines.
Yes. You can have arguments about the Terminator timeline all day long, basically ever since the second film. Although the third film follows it pretty closely, but when you get into this film and all the timelines being altered and running together and blah blah blah, it's mass confusion. So we're going to try and stay on topic here as far as the storyline not making sense for the timeline as far as this movie is concerned.
We actually had a conversation before this video,
And it lasted almost a half an hour.
It was longer than that. It went on quite a while, and it's true. The timeline's messed up. The Terminator, Arnold knows stuff he shouldn't know. The T-1000 knows stuff that he shouldn't know. Like where the young Arnold would be. Why does the old Arnold know where the young Arnold is? Because that's something that the machines would know possibly, but not the human side. Just like the opposite way. Why does the T-1000 know where Kyle's going to be?
Yeah.
When
There
that's
is no way that the other side would know that that's where
the other side was.
yes, their enemy is going to be at that exact time, at that exact place.
And after having the conversation before this video, I have to agree on that. Again, we will not go into detail, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But again, the movie's so well done that
yeah,
I
we
didn't
don't
even
care.
Yeah, I don't really care. Oh well, it's a time travel movie.
Yeah.
Almost every time
There's
travel
going to be
movie's gonna
problems when you
messed
talk
up.
about time travel. Even Back to the Future
Yep,
has them.
even Back to the Future has it. It's going to happen.
And so does Harry Potter, for that matter.
Oh God, they shouldn't have done the time travel in Harry
Yeah, they
Potter.
should have just left that out completely. But
That made a big problem. But
Yeah,
with this movie, it's good.
I think in the Terminator franchise, it's a little bit more. What's the word I'm looking for? Noticeable.
I was
guess?
going to say noticeable because it matters so much.
Well, that and there's time travel multiple times over that's jumping over itself again and again, and it adds to the confusion.
but even the first
There's actually videos on
ones-
YouTube where you can just watch the whole Terminator timeline pan out and have people try to explain it for you and
Yeah,
all that
but
nonsense.
it's even the first movie. I mean, if you look at the first Terminator movie, if Kyle Reese had to be sent back by John Connor to create John Connor, then how did John Connor be there to send back Kyle Reese in the first place? There's going to be
Well,
problems.
that one's like a perfect time paradox, though. Like, it was supposed to be that way every single time that you go through the timeline.
Yeah, but the very first time when it wasn't time travel, how was he created? How was John Connor created? It doesn't work.
He wasn't. It just always happened that way.
So they sent Kyle back without John Connor, which created John Connor?
Yeah, again, we're not going to get into that argument here.
I'm saying...
Watch a YouTube video on the Terminator timeline, and you can decide for yourself how messed up it is.
Yeah. So, moving on, another timeline-ish thing. Why didn't they go earlier into the future instead of right before Genisys started?
Yeah, I believe, I could be wrong on this, but I believe they go forward in time to stop Genisys about 24 hours before it goes online. At that point, what are you going to do? Genisys is already owned by a huge corporation. It's already completely developed. They're just waiting to hit the button on the thing. There's nothing you're going to be able to do. In the Terminator TV show, they're a lot smarter about it. They go back to the point in time where Skynet is basically getting built in some guy's closet. So they don't have to deal with big corporations or, cops or any of that stuff. They have one person that they need to mess around with. And, I mean, that's probably what they should have done here. But, in the Terminator TV series, you've got,
many hours to tell the tale. And this
30
only
episodes
has
or whatever
one
to tell the
movie.
story. And here we're trying to do that in a 2-hour time window. So
Which makes sense. It's easier to send them right
it's
before
funny,
it
though,
starts.
and, a time travel story, and they're on a time crunch. But, my argument is they wouldn't be able to tell that whole story in a 2-hour movie, and so they just kind of
Move things along.
spit it up so that we can tell a nice, quick story for the audience.
And I understand that.
I understand that as well. Does it make sense in the Terminator universe?
Not really,
No,
but
they've got to do something to
speed it up.
keep the movie to be a reasonable time.
One of the problems that I did have with it is the whole defying the laws of physics. That was a little bit bothersome to me. The whole bus scene. And
Yeah, when the bus flips over.
Yeah, and the helicopters, the one helicopter.
They're flying around like, the
building the skyscrapers.
planes from Top Gun or something.
Just, the helicopters, like, even they take
Or the
off and
fact
all of a
that-
sudden the other helicopter could catch up to them with John Connor in it.
Yeah, it's
But
like
it's
he
pretty
snapped
much
his
the same-
fingers and another helicopter just kind of appeared that he was able to get into.
Just all different stuff that has to do
But
with the laws
again,
of
kind of
physics.
time crunching issues there, and they were, kind of really hell-bent on making a nice action sequence there.
Which it was some really good action
And it
sequence.
was some really good action. When you're watching that scene, you don't even think about that stuff. Although I did think about the fact, where the hell did he get a helicopter so fast? And how did he catch up to him? I did think that. So they kind of lost me on that one. But let's be fair. This is nowhere near the Fast and the Furious. And everybody loves those movies when you've got, cars flying all over the place and driving through skyscrapers and...
Yeah, jumping from one skyscraper to another
I
skyscraper.
think the last one had like some kind of race with a submarine under the water and
ice and stuff. And no.
Those have just gotten absolutely ridiculous, and nobody ever says anything about them.
Yeah, so you can't complain about this. Come on.
This is an action movie. Those are action movies. You can't diss on one and not the other. So, yeah.
Let's see here. Why doesn't the T-1000 kill Kyle Reese in the beginning?
Yeah, some people complain about that scene. That scene did bother me a little bit when the T-1000 just sitting right there and could just go, and that'd be the end. However, I think every single Terminator movie has a scene where one of our heroes could have been killed by the Terminator, and for whatever the reason, it doesn't happen. The most famous one is at the end of T2, where Robert Patrick sticks Sarah Connor and says, "Call to John. Call to John now." It's like, he could have just killed her and called to John himself.
Yeah, which he does anyways, and then just, leaves her to come up and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm still alive."
Yeah.
Yeah, so there other movies made that snafu as well. It's to make more intense scenes. I mean, obviously, if the bad guy kills the good guy right off the bat, you don't really have a movie now, do you?
Yeah, and that you can say that about pretty much every single Terminator movie. Mm-hmm. The first one has that issue. The second one has that issue.
I
the
didn't
third one has that issue.
I didn't
The fourth
actually
one has
think
that
about
issue.
it because I was so interested
They even
in watching
mimicked it in the TV series, which actually kind of bothered me. They were trying to pay homage to the scene where the T-1000 says, "Call to John, call to John." And it's like, well, they probably shouldn't have done that in that movie, and now they're doing it in the TV series again, and again it doesn't make any sense, because, again, the Terminator chick could have just killed him, but they didn't. So it's like, yeah, just leave that alone.
Like I was trying to say is that I was so into the whole mimicking of the first movie and stuff, since this happened at the end of that mimicking. I didn't really care. It didn't really bother me. I didn't notice it until it was mentioned later, and I didn't mind at all.
I did notice it, but it was done so well that I was like, oh, I'm just going to let that go and enjoy this. Because it was just that cool.
One of the things that I did like with the change of the mimicking part of the first movie is that they took one of the characters from the first part of the movie and put him in later, Detective O'Brien. I actually liked that. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, when they jump forward in time and Detective O'Brien, who helped Kyle in the
store
or whatever, was a young cop, and now he's an older cop. And I mean, say what you want about J.K. Simmons.
I like him.
I love him as J. Jonah Jameson in the Spider-Man movies. He's like the perfect J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
And he was also really, really good in this movie. I actually wished he would have had a bigger part.
Me too. He had some great lines to say and acted really
and it
nicely,
makes sense.
and it does make sense.
You know, a cop that has kind of figured out what's going on as far as the machines and time travel and all that stuff.
Yeah, and nobody believes him, and now it's come back.
They actually took that from the TV series. In the TV series, it's done better, but again, they've got more time to do it.
Yeah.
So for what they had in this movie, perfect. And there's also a little bit of beef that this is a PG-13 movie where it should be R. Terminator 4 was also a PG-13 movie. I believe Terminator 3 was an R. But I believe that they have shown at this point that they can make good Terminator movies and they don't have to be rated R. Would I prefer them to be rated R? Well, I don't know.
Was 1 and 2 rated R?
Yes, 1 and 2 are both rated R. I've got a bit of a soft spot there. Terminator 2 was the very first rated R movie I had ever seen. And it blew me away on so many levels. And it wasn't just the fact that the effects were cool and the action was great. The fact that it was rated R, and I hadn't seen a rated R movie before, so there was, you know, a little bit more gore than what I'd ever seen, and language, and these sorts of things. So the shock value for me, the first time I saw that movie, was very, very high.
I don't know, I didn't really notice the whole not being rated R in this movie.
Yeah. It didn't bother me either.
Yeah.
And it didn't bother me in the last film, or the TV series for that matter. The TV series does a great job of showing Terminator stuff and not making it, you know, overly graphic. I mean, you can tell a good story without it needing to be rated R.
I thought it was still intense and still...
Now, do I want to see a Deadpool movie that's not rated R?
No.
No, I do not. No. But I think for the world of Terminator, I think they can make a decent Terminator movie and have it be PG-13.
I wouldn't want 1 and 2 to be PG-13.
I wouldn't either. I want to leave them
but
just the way
as
they
they made Genisys, I think they did a pretty good job.
For what they were trying to do with this movie, I think PG-13 is just fine, and I was very happy with it.
Yep. What about the music score?
Oh, yes. That is one thing I wanted to touch on. The score for Genisys, in my opinion, is a little weak. It hasn't been outstanding for any of the movies other than 1 or 2. Brad Fiedel hasn't really done anything before or since, as far as I know, other than write the score for the first 2 Terminator movies. And that's a tough act to follow. I mean, he's not John Williams, but he might as well have been for those first 2 movies. I mean, the score, especially for the second movie, where the score is just genius through the entire film. And the fact that he was able to put together a good score for the first film with a non-existent budget, pretty much. That says a lot for this guy.
We have the first movie's main song in the car. Is that the one we have in the car?
Yeah, we also have the second one.
But the first one's the one that is heard the most.
Yes, the electronic sounding one, because he did all of it with a synthesizer because he couldn't afford
it was very machine sounding. And I listened to that song, and it brings so much emotion to me. I can be chilled, be close to tears. It moves you. Yeah.
And the problem with Terminators 3, 4, and 5 is that the music just isn't there. You don't have that haunting feeling that you get from Terminator 1 and 2, and the TV series for that matter. The music for the TV series is also outstanding. But I don't know. I'm a guy that's a little bit picky with my music.
He's a big score person.
Yeah, I love music composers and that sort of thing. But for me, the score was I mean, it didn't take anything away from the film, but it didn't add that special punch that you get from a Brad Fiedel Terminator score. Just wasn't there. Sorry.
One of the other things that didn't bother us that was complained about by a lot of people is the dick measuring contest between Arnold and Kyle.
Yes, where they're trying to
Load
they're
the
loading
guns.
up their guns, and they're trying to Kyle's trying to outdo the machine just because, it's like she said, it's a dick
Measuring contest. Two guys with egos, and they want to prove their self. And
well, obviously the Terminator doesn't have an ego.
well, yeah, it's Kyle.
Yeah, it's all Kyle. But I thought
that's the thing that people had problems with, was that the Terminator was kind of going along with it. The Terminator didn't ignore Kyle. They had a mutual dick measuring contest.
Yeah.
And I thought it was endearing.
There's a lot of scenes in the movie like that a lot of people have problems with. Like every time Arnold tries to smile, which he did in Terminator 2, which unfortunately that scene was cut from the theatrical version, but I think that's one of the best scenes.
It's where he
in the
smiled.
film. Yeah. And he does that several times in this movie, even when they're getting their mugshots taken, which I thought was hilarious.
The mugshots were hilarious.
Yeah.
Where Sarah Connor's really short, and Arnold tries to smile. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was... What came out first, Guardians or Terminator Genisys? Because both the movies...
They both came out the same year, 2015, I believe.
So they were made without seeing each other, and they both made a funny lineup scenario.
Yeah.
So, hey.
I mean, that's been done before, though. What that the Mutual Suspects or
Unusual Suspect?
The Usual Suspects.
Usual Suspects, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of where the whole mugshot montage came from.
Yeah, but that was a lineup, not a mugshot.
But I mean, movies have been mimicking that ever since, so they wouldn't have had to copy each other because that's been around for a while.
Yeah, but I just thought it was funny that both of them did it so well in the same year. It was funny. It was good.
Yeah.
It was
and there are
endearing.
quite a few funny scenes in this movie, and I like all of them. So
I liked the humor in the movie.
yeah, I think people are just trying to find,
Another 2.
Yeah.
You can't get number 2.
Yeah.
Number 2 is never going to be, and you need to stop comparing it to number 2.
I would love to have another Terminator 2 because that movie is probably one of the best action movies ever made, and I don't think there's even room for debate on that. But
it's like
that was just one of those very, very special movies that only comes along every decade or so.
It was probably the best sequel out there. One
all
of, at
time.
least. Yeah, of all time. You don't get sequels that are better than the first movie. And I really liked the first movie.
Well, there are plenty of movies out there that are better than the original, but not
in the extreme.
Not where it makes the original look
when
microscopic.
it's so good as one is, because
Yeah.
I really thought one was great, especially with the low budget.
Yeah. Terminator 1 was made for under $7 million, which was ridiculous for 1984. By comparison, Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark was made for about $30 million. So, we're talking like bargain basement stuff here, and they still were able to churn out an amazing movie. Now,